Yesterday, the U.S. Supreme Court took up oral arguments in an antitrust lawsuit filed by a group of former college football players, led by former West Virginia running back Sean Alston, arguing that the NCAA, in and of itself, is an antitrust violation insofar as it creates limits on what can be offered to players, and therefore there's no competition among schools to get the players to go there. You don't have any extras that you can offer for this guy, any extras you can offer for that person. It's all limited. It's all capped. The argument is that eliminates competition. It violates the antitrust laws. That's the core of the argument, Chris. They were successful at the lower court, but not to the point where the lower court said that the players can be paid. It's other benefits over and above the standard room, board, tuition, fees, and snacks. There's more things you can offer that the NCAA says, no, that's what it's all about. And the oral arguments yesterday, there were a lot of questions, aggressive questioning of the NCAA, aggressive questioning of the plaintiffs, but reason to think that the reckoning could be here, because the argument is, and this is a weird argument, that the NCAA believes that the consumers of college sports want the players to be amateurs. Sure. I don't think the consumers of college sports give a crap about that. I know I don't.
Right. Yeah, I mean, how convenient of a thought that is. Oh, wait, the consumer wants them to be amateurs, so therefore we don't have to pay them. We don't want to pay them. I mean, of course, they don't want to pay. I mean, what a BS argument that is. I mean, that's all there is to that. I mean, that's stupid. I would be watching, the Final Four if it was the team that was, they don't do anything and they don't pay their players, and if it was another team where they were handing out gold chains and $5,000 in cash every day, I'd go, well, I can't wait to watch this. One team's clean, the other one's paying money. This is going to be awesome. Let's see who wins. I mean, come on. That's bull crap. That's a horrible argument. The NCAA's argument as a whole is BS to me. And, the one thing I found intriguing about it, Mike, and I know you know more about this than I did, but I read a little bit about it. Some of the questions from some of the justices, I mean, I found those a little bit, attention-seeking for me as far as, oh, wow, okay. Clarence Thomas, I believe he asked something about it, right? There was another comment that, of course, jumped out to me that seemed like they were really questioning the NCAA.
And Clarence Thomas has a reputation for rarely, if ever, asking any questions during oral arguments. So when he speaks, it is very noteworthy. He said...
Yeah, what did he say?
When he questioned the NCAA, he asked whether that in the name of amateur sports, the NCAA also tries to limit the compensation for coaches, which is a hell of a question.
Great question.
Right?
Great.
Yeah, if it's all about amateurs and it's well, then they all should be amateurs.
That's right.
This should be a guy who he sells insurance by day, and then on the weekends he coaches the college football team.
Right.
If you're an amateur,
right.
Instead of this is ultimately why the NCAA is fighting this, folks. They don't want to have to blow up their budgets and factor in a gigantic new line item consisting of paying the workforce. It's a lot easier to balance your budget sheet when you don't have to pay your workers. You're paying your coaches, you're paying your administrators, you're paying your president, you're paying for this, that, and the other thing. They all have these opulent facilities because they don't have to pay the players. It's easier to do that. It's easier to make ends meet when you don't have to pay the players. That's what this is all about. And they want to continue that model for as long as they can. And Chris, I think they recognized 10 years ago, the ox is going to get gored at some point. They're going to have to face their reckoning. And every year that goes by that they don't is gravy to them. At some point, that reckoning is coming, and they're just going to fight and fight and fight, spending on lawyers the money they don't have to spend on their players and hold it off as long as they can. I think that's what they're doing, and I hope at some point these players will get fair compensation for the billions that they generate.
That's right. I mean, billions. And, I know there's the people with arguments about, you're getting free boarding and free school and all that. Yeah, okay, I get that. But a lot of these schools, they're not that expensive right now. I see, like, I saw comments on, like, the bottom of the Pro Football Talk just there, where so many people are like,
First mistake.
Well, I know. Do people
those.
realize what it costs to go to college? Yes, we do realize. And it's not as expensive as some of these state schools that are awesome at football as you'd think. It's not. And it's not apples to apples to what some of these players are delivering, for that school. So that's not a good argument. And in college football specifically, compared to the other sports, players sell in college football. One, we have legit NFL stars who are playing for 3 years. They have to be there 3 years. So now you have those stars that are there. That's different than college basketball, where it's one and done, or they don't even go to college or whatever else. They avoid it and go overseas, something like that. That's different. So no, people can't latch on to that one and done. You can latch on to a 3 and done guy. And within college football too, there's a real culture there of just college football. You don't necessarily need to be an NFL star to be a college star. Guys like Tim Tebow, his jersey's going to sell forever down there in Florida. No matter what he did or didn't do in the NFL. And there's a lot of other college players that are just like that, where there's no NFL stardom, but they are associated with that school. They won a Heisman or national championships at that school, and that school is still selling their jersey number to this day, and there's nothing to be gotten back for the players. That makes no sense.
Well, I've got 2 points to make based upon what you said. First of all, anytime I hear that free education stuff, you have to understand it's not the retail value of the education. Colleges, and I'm sure I'm going to get plenty of very pleasant, reasonable, non-hostile emails today, but I firmly believe this. Colleges are like a jewelry store where they mark everything up. Anybody who's paying full price for college is a sucker.
Right.
Because all you got to do is show up and they give you a scholarship. Hey, you have the showing up scholarship. What's your name? Oh, that's your name? You get the you told us your name scholarship.
Right.
Let's see. Do you have a high school diploma? Oh, you get the high school diploma scholarship. So it's all inflated so everyone feels like they're getting a deal. And the reality is, how much does it really cost to say we've got one more person who's going to attend class, or as the case may be, not attend class, one more person we have to put in a dorm, one more person we have to go feed at the communal food trough where they're buying food by the truckload. How expensive is that to let one more person go eat, to let one more person sleep in a cot, to let one more person have, pretzels and peanuts at 10 o'clock at night? So it's not an equal trade. That's the problem. And you're talking about the abilities of these individuals, the sacrifices they put in for the time they devote to it, and the risk they take of injury, both short-term and long-term. So that's one side of it, where when somebody says they're getting a free education, I say, get the hell out of here with that argument. And here's the other reason I say get the hell out of here with that argument. Most of these guys, and I'm focusing on college football players, they've been cream of the crop their whole life. Best of the best when they played youth football. Best of the best when they played middle school. Best of the best when they played high school. They're being recruited by a major college to go play there. In their mind, they're going to play in the NFL. They don't care about the numbers. They don't care about the percentages. They don't care about how few jobs are available because there's only 32 teams, not 150 college teams, but 32 NFL teams. They don't care about that. They've always risen to the top.
Yeah.
I'm going to keep rising to the top.
Right.
And I'd go to the NFL right now if I could, but I can't. So what am I going to do? I'm going to go to one of these colleges and I'm going to major in football. And Chris, the NFL and the NFL Players Association, and that's part of the irony in this. Jeffrey Kessler, who's been the longtime outside counsel for the NFLPA, is the lawyer for this antitrust case pushing the argument against the NCAA. The NFLPA is complicit in this 3-year rule that forces guys to go to college football.
Right.
The NFL and the union are part of the problem here, folks, and I'm only speaking the truth. They're part of the problem. because they force guys to go provide free labor for 3 years, and then they pick the best of the best after those 3 years and bring them into the NFL.
Yeah, I hear you. Now, that's a deep conversation because there is also, and I guess this would work itself out, but again. It's rare that a freshman or something like that can.
So
make,
what?
I know.
Somebody wants to use a draft pick on a freshman. Let them.
That's right.
Let them.
That's where
they're old enough to go fight and die on foreign soil. They're old enough to go to the NFL. That's a bullcrap argument. I'm not mad at you.
No, I know.
But people make that argument,
right?
And the NFL makes that argument. These are underdeveloped bodies. And if a team wants to draft a guy, let them draft a guy.
That's where I was gonna say. It's gonna police itself. You don't need that rule, right? Teams will go. Wait, he's a freshman. He's immature. He's not physically mature. He's not ready yet. Okay. Now, the bad thing about that is just would the NCAA now let that guy go back to school? That's the thing where that I think needs to get fixed a little too if you're going to do that because that
No, they won't because you made your choice. You made your choice. So future guys won't do that.
I know. That's stupid. That also needs to change to go along with it. Now, last thing I wanted to ask you, what was the other justice? Was that Justice Kavanaugh who made a quote? He had a fairly
powerful quote. He said basically, aren't you exploiting these athletes? Aren't you using your argument to not pay them as a way to just exploit college athletes? I mean, he hit the nail on the head.
Yeah.
He gets it. And I understand he entered the Supreme Court under a significant controversy that captured the national attention for several weeks. But now he's got one of those seats, and he used his voice yesterday to ask questions that I think need to be asked.
Yeah.
It's about getting free labor. Don't we all want free labor if we can get it? Life's a hell of a lot easier if you have a workforce that you don't have to pay. But the question is it right? And then the question is it legal? And the NCAA is going to find out. Usually what happens is, by June, that's when the term ends. There'll be a cycle every week. There'll be 2 or 3 opinions that pop out. There'll be a decision at some point by the time the term ends in June, mid to late June, and we'll know whether or not the NCAA can keep doing this or whether they're going to have to start making other benefits available or, more accurately, eliminating that rule that prevents the schools from really recruiting. It's going to be more than just Nick Saban showing up and sweet-talking someone. It's going to be, you got to come with something more.
Yeah, right.
Than the standard undergraduate education to get my son to sign a letter of intent to go to your school.
Yeah, no, I mean, it might come to that. You're right. I don't know what they do. Maybe they figure out some sort of salary cap for these colleges. Like, hey, you can only spend this much cash to buy players this year.
Antitrust violation.
Yeah,
that's another antitrust violation.
Okay.
See, Now, again, the lower court, the federal appeals court, focused only on education-related benefits like graduate tuition, other equipment and things that currently aren't allowed to be provided, like musical instruments. If there's a college athlete who's a music major and currently the NCAA says, well, you can't give them the guitar or the saxophone or whatever. Well, now you may be able to. They haven't crossed the bridge yet of actual payments. But the whole idea is, and the only reason the NFL gets away with a salary cap is because it's a unionized workforce applying to multiple different businesses. And this was the whole antitrust argument from 1987 through 93. Yeah. It was the argument they made in 2011. Once you take the union out of the equation, any effort to limit what one business is going to pay its employees, an effort that is the result of collective action by multiple businesses, is an antitrust violation. And so it potentially ends up being open season, Chris, where whatever someone will pay is whatever they are able to negotiate by way of a salary or whatever benefits. And that's the way, let's say there's the next Tim Tebow. That's the way you can win the recruiting war, how much money you're going to show up with. And when you look at all the money that college football makes, the money's there. There would be huge disparities between the best players and the worst, but there is in the NFL.
Yeah, no, you're right. There is. I mean, there's really a part of me as you explain this. I'd love to see it. I really would. I think it'd be kind of fun. You probably have some schools that go, no, wait, we really have a top flight education here, and we're not going to, like Notre Dame. They might be one that doesn't bend their rules. Here they are. This is what we are. We're Notre Dame, right? And then it's some other new age school who's paying players and doing all that. I think that could be fun for college football. I do, but please, something.
I mean, currently Chris, there's only 2 or 3 teams that matter now as it is.
Three.
It's not like it's going to get worse.
That's what I want. You're right. I mean, it's Ohio State, Alabama, or Clemson. Like, hey, wait, this just in. One of those 3 teams is going to be in the national championship game next year. Maybe both. And one of them's going to win it. Like, okay, and who will that 4th be? Will it be Notre Dame? Will it be LSU? I don't know. But if those 3 are going to be there, you're right. So I don't know if it does change a whole lot. But either way, all these arguments people use to go against the players and everything, it's just not right. I know there's things that are positive there and all of that type of stuff, but there's too many players, like we've talked about, even in my day, where it's scrounging for money to make meals work during the weekend and things like that, and that just should never be. That should not. Like you said, these schools are making hundreds of millions, 60, 70 million a year on their football team. And here's the other thing that gets lost in this too. You talked about it a little. A lot of these guys, you're going to college football and these major programs because you think you're an NFL football player. We always hear the stories about the guy who got hurt but got drafted still and was successful in the NFL. What we don't realize is how many guys there are that, he might have not been a star in the NFL, but he was going to make it to the NFL, and he ruined his knee, or he ruined his shoulder, or he had a neck injury. And that's the other thing people forget about this too. So now this guy, or a handful of guys from 4 years of being in college, he's put everything on the line for that school and everything like that. He's got no money, and he was going to be an NFL football player, but now he's got a career-ending injury, and he'll never capitalize on his talents and really what he was maybe put here on God's green earth to do the best, which is play football. He can't do that now, and nor does he have money, and that to me pisses me off too.
Best example, Tyrone Prothro. Remember that name?
Yeah, I do remember that name.
Alabama star receiver.
Right.
Played at Alabama, catastrophic leg injury, and never made it to the NFL.
Yeah.
There's
a few of those guys.
I remember watching, I think it was Hard Knocks one year. My wife and I were watching it when it was the Bengals, and there was a guy who tore an Achilles tendon. This is a pro player. Tore the Achilles tendon. He's devastated. Crying, talking to his parents, talking to the coaching staff. And my wife said to me, college athletes get these same injuries, and they're not getting paid. It's like,
right.
They're not getting paid, and they're subject to these same kinds of injuries that can be that devastating. And so I think for a lot of people at a visceral level, once you pierce through the free education bull crap, they understand what's going on. And here's the bottom line. The people who are making more money than they should will make less. The administrators, the presidents, the coaches, that money is going to get redistributed, and they don't want it to happen.
Yes.
And the jobs are going to get more difficult for the people who have to balance this budget when you have to pay the players. Well, too bad. That's what you have to do. Professional teams do it, and these amateur teams shouldn't get away with it.
Yeah.
So.
No, and you're
Pete
right.
tells me out of the blue we have to go to break. Come on, Pete, where were you 5 minutes ago?
Well, college coaches, too, just the last thing, they get paid at the major programs better than the NFL coaches. Yeah, the head coach might not make as much as the elite NFL coach, but the assistants, they make really good money.
Ridiculous.
Yes, ridiculous.
Hi, I'm Mike Tirico, and thanks for watching. Make sure to hit subscribe for the latest news and highlights from NBC Sports.